all aboard the Volks Electric Railway for a journey through time. Departing from Brighton, England in 1883, this was the world's first electric railway. It ran on two parallel tracks, with a third rail providing power to the overhead wires. Yes, that's right. This was the very first electric railway. And just like today, it was powered by electricity. But unlike today, the source of that electricity was not the hot, gassy furnaces of burning coal or uranium rods in a water-cooled reactor, but good old hydropower. The train left Brighton and headed east along the coast, passing by the Volks Electric Light Company's powerhouse at the foot of the cliffs near the fishing village of Saltdean. The powerhouse contained two water wheels, which generated electricity for the railway and illuminated the town in one of the UK's first public lighting schemes. The current then traveled down the third rail and into the train where it powered an electric motor, driving the wheels. Our train has now reached its destination, New Haven, a busy port town with a rich history of boat building dating back to the 17th century. The River Ouse runs through it, and the town was once served by a passenger ferry, which crossed over to the historic city of Lewes. Today the river is spanned by a road bridge and footbridge, and if we take a closer look at those, we can see that they both feature a bascule swing design, a type of movable bridge often used in pairs to allow ships to pass. One half of the bridge remains fixed, while the other rotates on a central pivot. As we continue our journey, we come across another first for this railway. A level crossing, the world's first, appropriately enough. The invention of the electric railway itself had been prompted by the desire to improve safety at level crossings, which were notoriously dangerous on steam railways due to the risk of explosion. But as we've seen, even on an electric railway, they can still be risky. We pass under a bridge and find ourselves approaching the station at Peacehaven, built in the distinctive Victorian style popular during the railway's construction. These elaborate station buildings were often designed to complement the local architecture, and what's known as Queen Anne style became very popular for stations built after the railways had been electrified. The heavy use of brickwork and terracotta, as well as the large prominent chimneys, were typical of the period. The ornate gables and decorative brickwork here are particularly fine examples. Leaving the station, we travel along a short but very steep incline before reaching the next stop, Telscombe Cliffs. Looking out over the sea, we can see another of the innovations introduced on this railway, the overhead wire. This was the first electric railway to use them, although they were not used for the entire route. Instead, they supplemented the third rail as a source of power. Overhead wires allowed trains to be powered on sections of the line where it wasn't possible to install a third rail, such as over bridges or through tunnels. And they also enabled multiple unit trains such as this one to be used, which couldn't be powered solely by the third rail. That said, the third rail did have its advantages. Because it ran the full length of the line, it could be used to supply power to trains even when they weren't directly under the overhead wires. So the decision was taken to use both the third rail and the overhead wires in tandem. But it was not without its challenges. The overhead wires could only supply power to trains traveling in one direction along any given section of track, since the wires were suspended from the same poles on each side. This meant that the railway needed to be double-tracked so that trains could travel in both directions and be powered by the overhead wires. Not only that, but the polarity of the third rail had to change at certain points along the route, so that trains could travel through stations and remain powered. Just before the steepest section of the line, we reached the final stop on our journey, Rottingdean, a village that was once home to a large population of fishermen and boat builders, as evidenced by the many boat sheds that can still be found along the coast here. It was also once home to one of the most famous authors in history. We owe the existence of this railway to the vision of Dr. Richard Trevithick, who sadly died in poverty and is buried in an unmarked grave.